If you are a teacher, parent, administrator, student, and/or anyone who loves reconnecting children with nature, and you want to figure out how to cultivate learning gardens and nature-based curriculum, then this is the podcast, the Outdoor Classrooms podcast. My name is Victoria Hackett. I am the founder of Outdoor-Classrooms.com and the Secret Gardens Nature Classes. I love witnessing the magic that happens when children are playfully learning outdoors. Observing the return of wonder and curiosity when children are interacting with nature is pure magic. This is the podcast that is going to help you capture children's interest and give you not only inspiration, but some real life strategies that are going to help you figure out how to use the outdoor space, your outdoor space, as a teaching tool, so you can enlighten the playful learning experience for young children. Welcome to our Outdoor Classrooms community. Eliza Pitkin is the Director of Education at Harborlight Montessori School in Beverly, Massachusetts, and has over 30 years of experience teaching and leading Montessori educational programs. Elisa has a BA in early childhood education and has a master's degree in education. She has been teaching for the Montessori Institute of New England as well as Endicott College. Elisa is a Montessori trained teacher for early childhood, lower elementary, and upper elementary. She has been at Harborlight for 29 years and most recently has been working on their outdoor classroom spaces, including garden beds, raising chickens, and creating spaces for children to learn and work. Without further ado, Eliza Pitkin. Hello, Elisa. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am absolutely thrilled that you are here today and joining us on the Outdoor Classrooms podcast and sharing the Harborlight Montessori's story, the Outdoor Classroom story. So I'd love to maybe start there a little bit about, maybe you could share a little bit more about yourself and maybe a little bit more, and then go into the Outdoor Classrooms story at the Harborlight Montessori School.
Okay. So I've been working at Harborlight forever, it seems like. And we had you come years ago. I don't even remember how long ago it was. Maybe 7, 8 years ago, maybe at this point. And we had just launched our Experience Week program where the children get to do this deep dive into a particular theme over our vacation weeks and our summer program and some different weeks that we have on the calendar. And you did that kind of like a farm to table week where the children did some gardening and prepared some of our garden beds, our very meager garden beds at the time. And really we're teaching the kids about the joys of gardening and kind of all of the things that would, could bring into the classroom really. And so they did a lot of planting that session. And then weeks and weeks later, things like peas and sunflowers and things were sort of sprouting up all throughout the campus. And then you had come also to do some professional development with our teachers to really spark what the possibilities were on our campus. And we really took that and then created all of these little spaces on our campus, really all over the place, and these little nooks kind of everywhere. And tried to make them into learning spaces for the children in these different areas on our campus. And then COVID hit. And then we really used those spaces as outdoor learning spaces for our students to keep them safe. We had only closed for those couple of months, and then we opened July 1st for our summer program. And so we really used our outdoor spaces all the time because we just didn't want to be inside. And because when the children were outside, we let them take their masks off and we really spread out. And so we used all of the spaces we possibly could use outside. And then in September, we continued to use those spaces and we called them outdoor classrooms because really that's what they were at the time. And we used them all the time, even in the winter. And, the kids would put on their snowsuits and everything, and we still use them. And we added a greenhouse, we added chickens, we added garden beds everywhere. And it was just really fun to have all of these spaces for the children to come and learn and do all of the things that they needed to do outside, and really getting them involved in planting and growing and then eating. That was the most fun for them, to go out to the garden and harvest things and try things that they would never have tried before, and then being able to incorporate other things into our curriculum. I think I was telling you about a book that we read in the library called The Pet Potato. And after we read The Pet Potato, it was about a little boy who wanted a pet and his parents said no. And then his dad gave him a potato to take care of. And the little boy ended up taking care of it and loved it. But then when the potato started to rot, they said goodbye to it and buried it in the backyard. And then it sprouted, grew potatoes, and then he was able to pass out potatoes to all his friends. And so the students wanted to plant potatoes, which we did. I had never grown potatoes before, so I had to learn myself about growing potatoes. And I happened to have a bag of baby red potatoes that had sprouted in my kitchen. And so we just threw them in a bed that we had during one of our April experience weeks. And then we also planted sunflower seeds back there too, and then kind of forgot about it. And then I think it was in the end of June, I happened to be standing in one of the classrooms and I looked out the back window and I actually went, "Oh my word." Because I realized that the garden had completely grown and there were potato plants everywhere. And the children were all rushed to the window, and we looked and it had been, those kids that had read The Pet Potato, and I said, "Look, it's our potato garden." And so we went outside and pulled up some potatoes, and it was amazing. And then we ended up harvesting 500 potatoes, and we put them out on we have a little farm stand that we put all our produce from our garden. And
The farm stand is new as well.
oh, yeah, that's new. Yeah, because we plant. So the farm stands up at the front of the building, and we put the eggs from the chickens. So the kids help me gather the eggs, and we put herbs and the tomatoes. And oh my goodness, last year we had gotten new soil for our garden beds, and in the soil I guess there was squash seeds. And so we had this hybrid squash that we had never even seen before, and it was everywhere. Anywhere that we had put this soil, we had squash plants, and it was just, they were growing all over campus, but particularly in our garden, it had taken over everything. And so we had it was a mix of butternut squash and pumpkins, I think. And so we had these really bizarre looking things growing everywhere. And so I was giving out these squash like they were hors d'oeuvres. I was leaving them by the front of the building and giving them to people at dismissal, being like, "Please do something with these." And so people were making bread and they were making soup and all of these things. And so we had, this weird squash for weeks and weeks and weeks. We were just passing out.
So is the farm stand, is there a money exchange? Is it just like a gift that goes to the families that come?
Yeah, it's just a gift.
But listeners are probably thinking, how does the functionality of it work?
Yeah, so it's just a gift. We leave it out for the parents. People have asked, how do we get on the list for eggs? Because everybody loves the farm fresh eggs. So I have these little egg cartons, and actually a friend of mine, our director of admission, gave me for my birthday a little stamp that says Harborlight Hens on it. And so we stamp the egg cartons. And so we don't have a list. I suppose I should try to figure out a nice, fair way to give our eggs to everyone. But I just leave them out at the front of the building, either first thing in the morning, or sometimes I leave them in the afternoon, because we have families that pick up and drop off in the morning, and then sometimes our families pick up in the afternoon. So I try to be fair about that. But our chickens, we had 6, now we only have 4. And they're still laying eggs. I think they're 4, almost 5 years old, and they're still laying eggs. They're going strong. But so at some point I'll have to figure out if I should make a list or whatever. But right now it's just first come, first serve.
And just from when we did that professional development, it was this incredibly expansive campus that I felt wasn't necessarily being used. And I'm just the stories that you are sharing and how these pockets, these different areas really became miniature outdoor classrooms everywhere. And creating these again with the chickens, they weren't there. Create the potato garden that wasn't there. Like creating these incredible destination. So did that all happen? Was that sort of this global design that you said, okay, it sounded like, which I love even more, that the potatoes just sort of happened? Was there an approach that you took? Was there, or just did it all just sort of happen organically from the interests of the children?
A lot of it came from conversations with the teachers. We had a greenhouse. It actually moved several different places on campus. Like we had it in one place and it didn't really work out, and so we've moved it a few times. And we actually the original one we had sort of started falling apart, and so we got a new one. And then so we have this, that area in the middle of our campus. When you first drive in and you kind of drive around the parking lot, we call it the greenhouse lawn now. And so that's where we have the greenhouse, and we have two sort of raised beds, and that's where the chicken coop is now too. And we had just decided we had raised the chickens actually here in our classroom. So the kids we were learning about life cycles, and the teachers had decided to hatch chickens and ducks. And we can't keep the ducks because we don't have a pond here, and it's not safe, with the coyotes and whatever, so we can't keep them. But we decided to keep 6 of the chickens and raise them here. And so that's been really fun. And the children really wanted to keep them here. And so that was really nice. And they come, and mostly during the summer, because, I'll go outside and say to them, who wants to help me weed or harvest or feed the chickens? And I usually end up taking this big group with me. And so that's really nice. And they'll help me water. And, so it's a good learning experience for them. And then they'll try the things that we have grown. We've done a lot of, beans and peas and tomatoes and different herbs. And I didn't plant squash this year after the squash debacle last year, because it really was just all consuming. We did a corn maze last summer, which was really fun. And it was the second year we did it. The year before we tried it, and it didn't work. So we learned, and we got our property manager was.
What I'm hearing is that you try things and it may not happen the first time. And I think it's important for listeners to hear
Yep.
that it may have this great idea and you try it and it's like, oh, it didn't quite happen, but to not give up and then to try it again.
Yep.
Such a
And
great.
having parent volunteers and people to help, like, it's really nice here. I have an amazing group of parent volunteers that help with getting all of these things done. So, and they're amazing. They'll come and help me plant seeds, and then they will stop by and water and weed. They don't even tell me that they're coming. I can always tell when they've been there. And our property manager is amazing. He's always doing stuff. He built our garden beds, and he helps with so many things. And again, like, he just does things. He'll see something that needs to be done and he just does it. He was amazing with getting our corn maze off the ground. He and our parent volunteers just did it. And we tried to do it on our own the year before, and it just was a flop. And then he listened to our vision of it, and then he was like, I've got this. And he really helped us pull it off. It was amazing. And anytime the children, anything that's for the children, and you put it out there and parents are like, oh, I will help. And I
Yeah.
think that makes all the difference. And the teachers too, they see that the children are really invested in this, and the spaces outside, we have these really great areas for it. And then the teachers just love to bring the kids out there. And we put artwork out there too, and we have this great big stone table that is in one of our outdoor classroom spaces. And then we got stools that are our school colors. And so it's just a beautiful space for them to be. And then you have to teach the children how to maintain the area. And, we've had this happen too, where Everything is in boxes, plastic boxes with lids. And if you don't close the lids and a storm comes, then everything gets wet. And so they learn that. And then we have to, fix everything and replenish all of the things. And that is frustrating, but it
Yeah.
is a learning process. And so we go through that a couple of times. So,
Knowing the routines and systems.
yep.
So I know we have a lot of folks that here in our community that are either educators in Montessori schools, and so I would love to learn how you see your outdoor classroom spaces and all these different activities and events and that you have that you've developed over the years, and how that really complements your Montessori methods.
Well, I think when you think about in Montessori, there's a big piece of it about, there's a couple of things. Like one, the handwork.
Mhm.
Montessori talks about how important it is to have children working with their hands and doing these not crafts, but craft work. So you really so much about gardening and getting their hands in the soil and growing things and all of that. So this really lends itself well to that. The practical life curriculum for Montessori, this is just such a good way for that to be incorporated into the elementary curriculum in particular, because when you are talking about gardening and taking care of plants, the botany curriculum, I mean, there's so much of that that can be brought right into the classroom and to what you're doing with that, like just taking care of plants, learn how to grow something. There's so many different seeds and different ways that you can learn how to grow different things. I mean, just the lesson on how to grow a potato, my word, we had no idea what we were doing. And now I think that we'll never not have potatoes here on campus. Learning how to grow something from kitchen scraps. I mean, there's so many different things you can do with like growing peppers and like all of that. There's so many ways that you can grow things from kitchen scraps. So, which we learned all about that too. And then even like taking care of the chickens. So, like when the chickens can eat table scraps too. And so there's all that research with that, and then cutting down on your compost and all of that kind of thing. So when the kids do cooking projects in the classroom, they can save certain things to feed to the chickens. The chickens love that. And I think that the chickens are still laying eggs all through the winter. And I think it's because of their diet and, how much they eat of regular food, not just their scratch and their little pellets that they eat, but also because they're eating things like vegetables and strawberry tops and, all the things that the kids use when they're cooking in their classroom. So, and then for them to be able to come out and feed them and see that process of taking care of these live animals. And it's also an extension of what they're doing with taking care of their classroom pets, but also these little farm animals that we have here. And they know that we have to take care of them too. I have a couple of kids that every day I sit at the door and shake hands with them and they walk in and they'll say to me, "How are the chickens today? Did you feed the chickens already?" And sometimes I have and sometimes I haven't. So it just gives them that sense of caring for living creatures outside of themselves.
So the different areas for Montessori, you have sort of practical life, just for that are Montessori, like
Yeah.
what?
So, it's the math, language, cultural, practical life, and sensorial. So those are the different areas. But practical life is care of themselves and the environment. And so there's a lot of like grace and courtesy, those kinds of things. And so those are the areas where you are learning how to take care of yourself and your classroom and plants and animals and that kind of thing. So in elementary, you're looking for ways to really bring that to life, where you're not so much learning about how to dust and sweep, you are actually dusting and sweeping. So this, having an outdoor classroom and garden spaces and that kind of thing really lends itself well to the elementary, because the kids are actually putting all of those skills that they learned in their preschool classrooms to work.
Right. So do you find that your outdoor classroom space do you seeing results in your children? Are you also working with the preschool
We
group?
we are. I think that we are revamping our we call it children's house, but we are revamping our children's house outdoor classroom. We did use it a lot more in years past, but right now they've been there's a committee that's actually working on how to make that classroom, that outdoor classroom space, a little bit more user friendly for what they want to use it for. So they have a really nice space. It's in the back of the building and it's all fenced in. So the children have a nice little area. There's one classroom that has a door that goes directly out to the outdoor classroom space. So they use it a little more frequently than anybody else because it's right there.
Yeah.
But so they've been talking about some different ways that they can utilize that a little bit more. But
Yeah.
there's a garden out there, so they planted some things out there this summer, and there's tables and a little rock box and things like that. So they're working on making that a little more beefed up so that they can use it a little bit better.
And just for those that are listening, we will be having an outdoor classrooms tour and talk, and that will be including all these incredible pictures of these outdoor spaces that we're talking about. So that will be a separate outdoor classrooms tour and talk, and that will be available to our Circle membership. So join us on our Circle membership, and you can get get a full view of. I love just being able to see you. You are actually right down the road from me, so I'm going to invite myself over when the weather gets a little bit warmer to see it. Actually outdoor spaces. Do you have any future goals? I mean, for your outdoor spaces, and do you see, since you've enhanced and sort of beefed up these outdoor spaces for your elementary school kids, do you see a difference in your kids? So I guess start with if you see a difference, and then maybe your future plans may be, because it's been a couple of years and you've done some significant work.
I definitely see that they have more interest in the what we do outside. They definitely have more interest in what we put in the gardens. They have more opinions about what we have out there. There's definitely talk of, they want us to have more animals, which I'm like, oh my goodness. I can only handle the chickens right now. Some of the kids want us to have these little miniature goats, which I have not done that yet. But yeah, the kids definitely love, like, anytime when we get into the planning stages of what we're going to put in the gardens, they have all kinds of opinions and want to help, which is really wonderful. And we do have a lot of plans. Our property manager and our business manager, they've been so amazing, and they're really great about being involved in this and really helping with all of it. And Jed and I both have this like dream about enhancing our garden space. And Mark, who's our property manager, is great because he helps us build it and do it. And he's really enthusiastic about the whole thing too. We would love to have like a pavilion out there, which like a covered space for the kids to be in. And right out there on our greenhouse lawn. And so we have lots of plans. Whether or not we can ever get to them, we don't know. But definitely, more garden things. My parent volunteers have already been like sending away for seeds and stuff. They just gave me some that they got in the mail. So yeah, it's really fun. So we'll see what we put in the garden this year. And it's amazing to have so much support with our leadership team here and with our parents. And so it's great that we have that here at Harborlight, and everyone is so enthusiastic about it, and the kids love it. And so it makes it really easy. So, and we also we connected to literature a lot too. So I think that makes it fun for everyone. And so it's just,
Are you doing that through books? Do you create? I know one of the things my mantra is like to create different signs outdoors.
yeah.
How are you bringing the literacy in?
So, like our lower elementary outdoor classroom space, we called it Westlandia.
Oh,
That's that book.
cool.
Oh, I forget the author now, but it's a great story about a student that was kind of like a misfit, and he had created his own outdoor
Oh,
world. And he had planted all these things, and he sort of lived outside for a summer in his backyard. And I had read that story to the kids during library. And we named our outdoor classroom space out there Westlandia, and the kids made a sign, and that's what that area is called. And then the children's house outdoor classroom is called Corduroy's Court.
Oh,
And we haven't named our greenhouse one yet. We thought about calling it Mr. McGregor's Garden, but we didn't. And so we haven't really named that one yet.
doesn't the names, I've just got goosebumps because the names are so personal and powerful, and
Yeah.
they sort of give that space a history in a sense. It's like, and it also brings it alive for kids, and also in planting it into their memory bank, and that, when they graduate from Harborlight Montessori, they'll remember that
Right.
different spaces.
Right.
And
Well,
I
and that's why I think we haven't named the greenhouse area yet, because there just hasn't been that one yet that we've been like, oh, this is what we should call it.
we got to call it,
At
yeah.
some point, it will come to us.
And
But
you have a little free library as well,
we
right?
do. We
They-
do. Yep. Yeah. So that's right outside of the greenhouse lawn.
And that was something that was sparked up, like, like when I was there, we did the training, it was like, oh yeah, we should put a library in. And so that was, so it's just
I
for,
think our former head of school, Susan Egan, had written a grant for it. And so, because she just loves reading and books and everything, all those things are so important to her. So she had written a grant for that. And then her son, Peter, who was our property manager at the time, built it
oh, that's,
there. So it's still here, and we refill it all the time. People are always coming by here and taking books and leaving books. And so that's, a really nice thing to have that here.
yeah.
It's
It's,
really nice space.
yeah, and it's just what I even see your beautiful outdoors. It's just the energy flow between the different areas, and I can't wait for the outdoor classrooms tour and talk, because it
Yeah,
just sounds absolutely amazing. If
it's
you could give any tips or tricks to educators that are listening, especially maybe Montessori educators that are listening, what would any tips that you would offer?
I mean, I would say don't try to do it by yourself is one. When people offer to help, take them up on it, even if it's a little thing like watering, because, in the middle of a heat wave, you're going to appreciate when somebody will say, hey, I'll water today. Many hands make light work. And it's also fun to have, a group of people out there to just talk about ideas and trying things. And even, because it's not always easy having a group of kids out there with you to do things. But when you see the joy of somebody being like, oh my word, we have a strawberry, like, it makes it all so worth it.
Yeah.
And when they get excited about like picking the first snap pea, or even when they taste something that they think is gross, like, it's so much fun to see the joy that they have. And even just like sitting around in the grass, reading a story out in the garden, or like just watching the chickens, whatever it is that we do out there, it doesn't even matter. Even if it's nothing, even if they're just sitting there, it's so much fun. And, whether you spend 10 minutes out in the garden space or an hour, it is so worth it. And it's worth all the effort. And even when they're just watching these little tiny shoots come up, like, they're so excited. And because it's work that they did, and getting their hands dirty and all of those things, it is so worth it. And even when you have a fail, like when we tried the corn maze and it grew 4 sheets of corn, we were like, oh well. And then the next year when it grew all the corn because of Mark and Brittany, like, it was amazing and it was so exciting. And
But all the learning that went into that. I mean, I think in today's society, we don't teach failure. We see failure is sort of a bad thing. Well, actually, if we can invite, and that's what's so great about, I think, outdoor classrooms and the natural environment, is that if we can teach that things don't always go the first time you try it, so we got to try and try again, so to speak. But I think your story about the corn maze is such a classic and really teaches that. Like, yeah, we tried it, but then we got some more brains behind, and more people got involved to
right.
put their expertise into it, and look what happened.
Right. Well,
You
and
know,
even, having chickens, like we had 6 and we only have 4 now. And that, teaching the children about the life cycle, and that in fact the chickens do die. And that's been an interesting thing, because I had two children with me one day and their dad when we realized that one of the chickens had passed on. And while it was so sad, just that moment when we realized that one of the chickens had passed away, and the reaction of those two children, I'll never forget it. And they handled it so beautifully, and that dad handled it so beautifully, and both of the children had written me a note and were so compassionate, and they were worried about me over that, because I take care of the chickens, and it was just amazing. And so just all of those learning experiences and the compassion for those two kids, like, it was just amazing. But so much learning in all of what we're doing. And you don't think of that. Like, you don't think about all of the different aspects of what's going to come when we just decided to put in these gardens and get some chickens, you know, but
Right.
it is amazing and worth it, worth all the work and worth all of the, wondering if these things are going to grow. And even today, it was -1 when I got up this morning, and I was like, oh dear, I hope the chickens are all right. And they were fine, but it's worth it because of the learning and the experiences for the kids. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Oh,
so when anyone says, like, is it worth it? Yes, absolutely. Do it. Like, even if you have to start with a little bucket garden, plant your little tomatoes, plant your thing of basil and a little strawberry plant or something, but like, do it, because it's so worth it to start with that. And then you'll get the bug, and then you can't stop.
and I think a part of that is you witness the impact that the kids, like what you were describing earlier, that
Yep.
seeing the first strawberry turn red, and all of those small little things that you cannot do in an indoor classroom.
Right.
There's this sort of magic of inquiry and curiosity that happens when they are outdoors, and I think that is that connection to nature. And I think it's happening at Harborlight Montessori. It's so exciting to hear your stories. I'm so thrilled that I called up to find out what was happening, and now you're here
I
sharing your.
know. I'm so glad you did, because it all started when you came here for your professional development and those experience weeks. So,
Oh, it was so fun, so fun. So I can't thank you enough. I'm very much looking forward to the Outdoor Classrooms tour and talk that we will do. Actually, see these spaces. So I'm inviting all of you who are listening to see that as well. And anything else you'd like to share and where we can find you?
well, yeah, we're in Beverly on 243 Essex Street. So if anyone wants to come in for a tour, I would say wait until. I mean, if you want to see the outdoor classroom, wait until the spring. But if anyone wants to come by, we would love to have you. Love to see you. So you can give us a call anytime.
I will put all that information in the show notes. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and I'll talk to you soon.
Terrific.